Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christine Radarski. I'm your president of APHNYS, and I'm delighted to welcome you here this afternoon for our presentation on history and technology utilizing video and other multimedia formats. We want to thank our conference sponsor, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, for supporting us here today. Our presenter today is Julie Madlin. She is the City of Ogdensburg historian, one of our APHNYS trustees, and a social studies teacher in the Julie, I'm botching this. Heuvelton Central. Heuvelton, thank you. Heuvelton Central School District, and Julie will correct me as needed throughout. So I'm delighted to welcome Julie to this session, and we'll put her up on the screen for you. You're on, Julie.
All right. Heuvelton is a really, really tough thing to say, so. Okay. So, what is going on here? Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm going to talk to you today about history and using technology with that. And we had a little late start today because of a technology glitch, so that's always fun. Kind of goes with my presentation. So I guess I don't really have to go through too much here, but I've been teaching 28 years at the middle school level as a social studies teacher, and 7 years as city historian. And I use a lot of technology as both a social studies teacher and as city historian. And this is one of the tours that I have around the city. And I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a little QR code. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later. So when I was appointed city historian, I thought about what I wanted to do. And I came up with these goals. So the first one is I really wanted to educate people about local history. And you know, there's so much history in our cities and towns and counties that people don't know about. And I wanted to make that history accessible to people. And I also wanted to preserve local history. So it was amazing to me that what people didn't know about my town. And I wanted to help them to learn more about it. So before we start today, I'd like you to think about this. This is my middle school teacher coming out. This is our bell ringer for today. I want you to think about why should historians use technology? Okay, so what are some benefits to using technology? So I want you to just think about that for a minute before we start. Okay, so hopefully you thought about a reason why historians should use technology. I want to show you something that really kind of surprised me, even as a middle school teacher. So a couple of questions here. What is the reading level of most Americans? So think about that for a minute. Where do you think most Americans are reading? What grade level? And how many books do Americans read per year? So I want you to think about that. Okay, so let's take a look at the first question and the second one. Okay, so here's why I think you want to use technology. First of all, 50% of adults can't read a book written at the 5th grade level. So think about that for a minute. 45 million are functionally illiterate and read below a 5th grade level. Okay. So most are reading below a 5th grade level. 44% of American adults don't read one book in a year. That's almost half of American adults don't read a book in a year. And 6 out of 10 households do not buy a single book in a year. So think about what you're doing as a historian and how many people are you really reaching? And I really thought hard about this. So I can write articles for the quarterly. I can write articles for the newspaper. How many people can read them? And how many people will read them?
So that really got me thinking, how can I make history accessible to everyone? Because if I'm reading at a 5th grade level or below a 5th grade level, I'm not going to read the newspaper, and I'm not going to read what you wrote in the quarterly or any other scholarly article that you've written. I can't read it. So that really got me thinking. So why use technology? Well, as I just mentioned, it's a great way to reach more people and make history accessible. So you can reach both children and adults. And honestly, people learn in different ways. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by doing. You have a lot of poor readers, as we just mentioned. So there are many, many people who cannot read above a 5th grade level. So how are you going to make history accessible to them? People with disabilities. They may have a visual disability. Okay, they're not going to read the newspaper. So how are you going to make history accessible for them? And the other reason to use technology, at least for me, is that it's free. So many of the things I'm showing you today are free. Actually, all of the things I'm showing you today are free. I don't know about you, but I don't have a budget as city historian. And when I say no budget, I mean no budget, zero. And with the whole COVID crisis, those budgets that you do have might be going away. So that's something to think about as well. So I wanted to look at QR codes with you today, and movies and social media. Those are going to be the main things. And that's what we're going to be kind of concentrating on today. And I'm going to concentrate on movies and social media. So QR codes, what are they? Well, you see them all over the place. You go into stores and you see them there. The real name is a quick response code. And basically that's a fancy name for a barcode that stores information. And you may have used your phone, your smartphone, to actually scan that for different things. So you can create those with code generators online, and those are free. So it's pretty easy to do, and I have done that for my tours around town. I have little signs up with QR codes, and the great thing about a QR code is that you can link it to almost anything. So if you have an old photograph, movies, articles, you can even do scavenger hunts with it. So for instance, when I was doing one of my tours, I found a picture of what State Street looked like in the late 1800s. So I was able to link that to a QR code, and I could actually show people now and then. So when they were standing on that street corner, they could see what it looked like now, and then when they scanned the QR code, they could see what it looked like then. So that was really neat. And the other cool thing about QR codes, if you use them in a tour, is that it's a self-guided tour. So you're not bringing people around, they can go at their own leisure. So that's really kind of cool. So movies are another thing that I use quite a bit, and I have to say they're one of the most popular things that I do. You can do a lot of different things with them. You can do interviews. I've just put some old pictures on, even presentations. So there's a lot of different things you can do with movies. I don't know how well this will actually play on Zoom, but we'll give it a try. This was an interview with my dad that I did.
See, the old gate filled it in. Over where that concrete is, the water went in there and turned a turbine in that powerhouse. And there's a canal right next to it that went all the way down. They had the break wall still there. That break wall you see over there was the outlet.
Okay, so I won't play that whole thing for you, but it's just the idea that you could actually interview maybe older members of your community, and they can kind of take you around and show you what your town or your city used to look like. He was showing me the old canal system in town. He used to be building inspector, and he knew where that was, and he grew up on that side of town. So I was able to interview him, and he took me all through the whole area with the old canal system. And, you know, I was able to record that, which I thought was kind of neat. This next one are just some old pictures that I had. It came from an old souvenir book. This took me maybe 10 minutes to do, and it had a whole number of hits on it. It had, I think, 3,900 hits. So that had 3,900 hits on YouTube, which amazed me. It took me about 10 minutes to do. I just slapped the pictures in there, put some music on there. And it just shows people what some of the, you know, nicer houses were in the old days here in Ogdensburg. And you can do that for your town too. It just kind of gets people interested, and then you can delve into deeper things later on. And then this one, I'm used to teaching 12-year-olds, so this is brief, and I will do my best here. So here are my goals for you today. So you can also do presentations, any presentations that you do, and it's just a way of reaching more people. Maybe they can't go for the brown bag lunch at noon because they're working, but you know, they can maybe view what you've done later. So it's just a way of reaching more people. So I used to use Movie Maker, but Microsoft is not supporting that anymore. So there's a program called Adobe Spark, and Adobe Spark is free. You can pay for it, and it gives you more bells and whistles probably, but I've been using Adobe Spark for quite a while now, quite a few years. What I like about it is you can save it really easily, and it can be uploaded to YouTube and Facebook. And it's really the most popular thing that I've done. So you might want to consider doing that. And I can kind of show you what it looks like.
It lets you do a lot of different things with it. You can put pictures in there. I'm just going to sign on with my Google account here. And what's nice about it is once you get a template made of what you like to do. Oh, my internet's flipping out here. Then it's pretty easy to plug it in the next time you want to do one. So after you make a movie that you like, you can keep duplicating it and just changing the information. So these are some that I've done. I can edit this. And sometimes this takes a while, especially with my internet today. I think it will give you little slides. So if you've ever done PowerPoint, it kind of like that, where you have slides and you just copy and paste what you want in there. So here's your slides. You have a little plus sign if you want to add more. And this is where you can record any narration that you want. So that's easy. And then you can pick music. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this. And you get 30 seconds per slide to say whatever you want. And I do these all the time and people really like them. So that's one of the more popular things that I've done. Now, just because I've done it and it was popular here, I don't know what will be popular where you are. I can only tell you what worked for me. So you can use what you want to or not. It's up to you. So this was the pictures that I just showed you, and I checked yesterday and it had 3,900 hits. So if you're from a large city, you're probably thinking that's not much. I live in a small town. I only have about 10,000 people in my town. So for there to be 3,900 hits, 3,900 people watched this. So I think that's pretty good for my little small town. And then this is an example of an Adobe Spark video. So I'll show you that. This was on the Hannon House.
The stately chancery building of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Ogdensburg, located at 614 Washington Street, is an excellent example of the Second Empire style of architecture, also called General Grant style, due to its popularity after the Civil War. This style features a mansard-style roof with bracketed cornices beneath it and columned porches and porticos. Originally, it would have had a much darker color scheme.
So you kind of get the idea there. All I'm doing is putting pictures in, and then I narrate over the picture, and the music's already in Adobe Spark. You just pick what you want. So it's not too difficult to use. If you've used PowerPoint, it's a piece of cake. If you haven't, you find any kid and they can show you in about 5 minutes how to use it. They know way more than we do. So social media has also been really popular. So I do have a blog. I have to be honest, I'm not great about updating my blog. Facebook, Pinterest, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm also on Instagram. So I'm trying to reach as many people as I can. Some have been more popular than others. I did have a Twitter account, but I found that wasn't as popular for my population. Maybe you guys would have better success with that. I have to say, probably Facebook. I know Facebook is probably the most popular thing that I've done as far as social media. I do have quite a few people following me on YouTube as well, but I would say Facebook is probably the most popular. So when I started the Facebook group, I kind of had to think about what I was going to do with it. Obviously, I wanted to share old photos, so I did quite a bit of that. Some genealogy, sharing family names, so that's been kind of interesting. And then I decided to do a little post called On This Day, and I would look through the newspapers and find something for that date and post that. That's been pretty popular. And I share what I do as a historian. I've taken pictures of things that people have donated. I've taken pictures of my office. If I'm putting up signs for the tour for the year, because I don't leave them up in the winter time, then I would take a picture of that and post it. Just kind of keeping people aware of what you're doing, kind of that outreach. And I've done that quite a bit. I have almost 7,000 members in my Facebook group. And as I said, I come from a small town. So there's only about 10,000 people in my town. To have 7,000 members kind of amazes me. I really didn't think it was going to be that popular, but it is. A couple tips. I specifically don't ask or don't answer questions that people ask. I like my group members to talk amongst themselves and communicate. And so I have some people that have, I'm the administrator, but I have people that really post a lot and are very knowledgeable about local history. And so they've really done some great things on the site. And I think that if you do that, you'll find some people in your towns and cities that, you know, they may be willing to do that as well. It's hard not to answer all the questions, but I kind of back away and I let them do that. And if they specifically ask me, then of course I'll answer it. But I want them having that conversation. The other thing I would suggest if you do choose to use Facebook is to make sure you have your rules right up front. I go all middle school teacher on them. I don't allow swearing and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, they're really good about it. Even the political stuff, if they post anything political, they're automatically blocked from the site. So you have to be kind of tough. But if you have those rules right when you start out, have those expectations, you know, people are usually pretty good. So it's something that you might want to consider. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I'm just trying to kind of show you, you know, some things that I've done. And I can kind of show you See if it's going to let me on here. Now let me do it this way. I can kind of show you how to set mine up. So you can see a lot of people are posting things.
And you know, sometimes the things they're posting, you know, they're interested in it. It might not be something that you or I might be interested in, but it's kind of cool that people are sharing. So he's got a box of memories here. This is a friend of mine, actually. And he's got family photos there. And this lady likes to actually, she does a lot of research for me, which is great. She's really interested in history. And this gentleman posts a lot of photographs. He likes to take walks around town as well and post things that way, which is really nice. And this is something I posted, so I try to post as well. That's just an old picture that I had of a trolley. And once again, this lady's posting Sanborn insurance maps, which are really nice. That's something that I posted. So you can kind of see what people are doing here. And some of it might be, you know, just like, hey, let's take a walk down memory lane. I don't have a problem with that. It gets them looking at history, and I can post other things that maybe are a little bit more educational. So it's really kind of what you're comfortable with when you're doing your sites. I mean, maybe you're comfortable with Facebook, maybe you're not. I was shocked at how many people, as I said, joined. And then that's just my official site there. Something else you might want to consider are podcasts. Podcasts are audio files that you can find on the internet. Many times they're a series, and they're actually really popular right now. So there's all kinds of podcasts out there, and some people are really into these. So that might be something that you want to consider doing. I've done them with my kids in school. I have to be honest, I haven't really done them as a historian so much, but I've done them with kids in school, and
It's a great way as a social studies teacher to get them looking at history. And they love to talk and they love to be on the internet anyway. So why not do a podcast? So this is an example of one that, that my kid did at school.
Thank you, Dylan and Landon. Our final segment today is an interview of Mr. Scott Sargent, who is a teacher in our school. This interview was conducted by Avery.
You're listening to the Bulldog Blast podcast. I'm Avery, joined today by Michaela, Reed, and Justin. Today we'll talk about our interview with Mr. Sargent. We are going to ask Mr. Sargent some questions about his early life as a child and his life as an adult. What is your favorite childhood story?
Oh boy, probably have a lot of them, but I don't know if I could pick just one story, but probably being chased by my brother home from the corner deli and throwing a pizza into the street was just one of many times that my brothers tormented me as a child. So that might be my favorite story of him sneaking into a laneway, and had previously set up the story by telling me that someone had been knocked off their bicycle or something, and then sent me to get the pizza, and then snuck down the laneway just to scare and torture me. So that's always been one of my favorites.
Okay. Can you describe the neighborhood you grew up in?
My neighborhood is the kind of neighborhood any kid would have loved to grow up in. There was probably 15 or 20 different kids somewhere around my age. If you weren't outside by 9 o'clock playing, you were probably going to be late for a game. And every single day it was full of kids that were all treated the same. I had 2 kids in my neighborhood that were.
So you can see that they got experience in not only communication, interviewing other people, but it also is interviewing somebody like a historian would. So looking at that primary source. And that's something I had historians actually come in, and the kids also interviewed them. So they interviewed me and the town of Lisbon historian, town of Heuvelton historian, and the town of De Poyster historian. So 4 of us were interviewed by the kids at different times. So that was an opportunity for us to share our knowledge and our of the community with those kids. So it's something, if you want to do outreach in the schools, that might be something that you might want to consider. So it's, or you can do them yourself and interview people in your community. But podcasts are very, very popular right now. So that's something that you might want to consider. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Have you changed your mind about using technology? And what form of technology would you use? And how would you use it? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. Okay. So I would like to hear what you guys have to think. Is it something that you might want to consider, do you think? You can unmute if you would like to.
Hello, this is Jason speaking from the town of Elbridge.
Hi.
And I have to say, I really am excited about the idea of using a QR system posted up to allow people to see, like, what did this house look like back in the time, or what used to be on this plot.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I don't know about your town, but we went through urban renewal. So just about all of our downtown is gone. So if you're coming through town and expecting to see this nice little historic downtown, it doesn't exist. But I have some great pictures that I've been able to share that way.
In our village of Jordan, our historic Erie Canal downtown section is practically completely gone. And so having this resource would be amazing for that area, such as being able to see the old warehouses and factories that were there.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome. And when I did those signs, they're on a foam core because I didn't have any money to work with. So it cost me $50 per sign, and I got sponsors to do that. Wrote a couple grants and got sponsors. So it cost me $50. And they've lasted, I'm going on my 5th year with them. So I'm pretty excited.
If I may, I also have 2 questions.
Yes.
One, what audio recording program did you use? Was it something like Audacity?
Yes.
And 2, well, not so much a question as much as, are you familiar with free graphical programs like Scribus that does sign layouts and things? So you can like get a professional looking sign quality that then get printed out or such, like with your QR code foam core signs. Right.
I've seen that. I worked with a local company because my mom owned a small business in town, and I like to work with the local people. So yeah, I could have done it that way, but I chose to work locally.
What I've done for some signs is design them that way and then brought them to a local shop sign printer and had them produced there with great success.
Yes. But in my case, she did it for me. So it was really kind of nice.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Julie, there are some questions in the chat. The first one is asking whether the programs that you're creating can be saved on a flash drive or just to YouTube and Facebook. And I think related to that is a question about the programs you're producing. Where are you displaying them? Are they just on Facebook or on a website? What platforms are you using?
All of the above. I put them wherever I can. Most of my things, I'm a big, and it's probably because of school. We use Google Drive at school all the time. And so I happen to use Google Drive. It saves everything for me. You can save everything that I've showed you, you can save on a flash drive. So if you like flash drives, I tend to lose them, so I don't like them. But if you like flash drives, you can save everything that I've showed you on flash drives.
One other thing to keep in mind with YouTube is for those of us that have limited storage space on our computers and don't want to continually buy flash drives, YouTube is free storage. You can always make the account private so that no one else can see it outside of you sharing it. But that's a great way to have storage if your municipality isn't supplying it.
Right, and Google is free too. Yeah, I have to do everything free. I don't have a budget. I have nothing, and probably a lot of you are in that same boat. Somebody's asking me, how do you get started with QR codes? There are a lot of free websites out there. Let me see if I can find one for you. Give me a second here. Let me see if I can find one. What you want is a QR code generator. QR code generator. And there's a whole bunch of them here. I'm just going to pick one. And when it comes up, it'll look something like this. So what you're going to do is put your website or whatever you want in there, and it will generate the QR code right here. And it's free. Most of them are free. If they want to charge you, don't use that one. And then this will be changed into a PDF probably, and then you can save it that way onto your flash drive or whatever you want to save it on.
Julie, where do you put these codes? I mean, do you stick them in people's front yards on a sign?
I have them on signs, trees, telephone poles, whatever I can find. Yes.
Okay.
And actually, I had one business said to me, because I said, hey, is it okay if I hang a sign out on your business? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So, if people are in in your houses, or, you're doing one on a business, ask them. They might let you put it right there. But I put it usually on a tree or something next to them.
But it's probably more than just the code, right? You probably have something there that tells them what it's going to be about.
Yes, I do. I think it was in the presentation. The very first slide I showed you guys, I don't know how well you could see it, but this is the sign that I did. I don't have a bigger one, I'm sorry, but it lists the name of the tour, because I have named each of my tours. This is the Strolling Down State Street tour. And then it describes what it is. In this case, it's the Baptist Church, First Baptist Church. And then below that is the QR code. And then below that would be the sponsor.
And then do you have a map that people take so they know where these are?
Yes, there is a map. And the map also has the QR codes. And because I have some people, like my dad, for example, is 84 years old. He can't walk the whole tour. So there are maps available, and you can, do it from your car if you really want to. Mm-hmm. Which
Great.
Is really nice for your old, especially your older people. Like my dad, he wanted to go on the tour, but he couldn't because he's 84 and he just doesn't get around that well. So, you have to think about, people with disabilities, older people, and this is great because they can still see the sites, but they're in their car with their little QR code.
Thank you.
Yes.
We got another question here. When you do your tidbits, do you do them on specific families? Do you need permission from the families? I'm assuming they come from newspaper clippings, therefore you wouldn't need permission, correct? They're public.
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that? My what?
When you do your tidbits on social media?
Oh, my videos.
Yeah,
No, I don't ask.
I think the question was about the on this day.
Yeah, on this day.
Oh, yeah. I just get them out of the newspaper, so it's all public record anyway.
Right.
And I tend not to focus on families per se. Nobody, you don't want to drag somebody's family through the mud, and I don't like that. So, sometimes I'll pick a crazy story, like, there was one of the ones I had was that there was a fight and the two guys got into it and, then they were friends afterward. I mean, it's just silly things sometimes, And then one was about Mussolini's planes flying over the St. Lawrence. That was kind of cool,
Do you ever allow more than one person to answer questions on Facebook?
Yes, I want them to. I want them to have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you handle incorrect historical information that's posted by participants in your group?
You know what's funny about it? They will correct each other. I normally don't have to. If they take ownership, they will correct each other.
Okay.
It's really funny. Yeah. Very rarely, I don't step in and correct them. I don't have to.
What do you use to edit your podcasts?
I have a program because I write music, so I use that program, which most of you probably aren't going to do. But you can use even YouTube to edit. There's a lot of different programs that will allow you to edit. I know YouTube does it.
A lot of people have asked for the QR code signs. So maybe if you could email that to Christine or I, and we could send it out to the attendees so they could kind of see it a little more up close and personable.
Yes, I will do that. I'm writing myself a note because I have a really bad memory, but yes, I will do that.
There's actually a number of questions in the chat about the QR codes, asking how you got started. Yeah, so I think that might be a new concept. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about what the role of those is and how you did that.
Yeah, so here's what happened. The school sent me to a Google conference in Canada, and we got to pick where we were going to go for different, sessions. One of them was QR codes, and I thought there wasn't really anything else I wanted to see, so I sat in on it. And I really didn't know what a QR code was. I didn't know what it did. And by the time I left there, it blew my mind. You know, what these things, the capability and what you can do with these things. So I started using them in school for scavenger hunts, and the kids loved it. And I thought, well, hey, they're going all over the school looking for things. Why couldn't I use it for a tour? And that's how I got started with them. But, and once again, because I didn't have a budget, I had to think of some ways, because I can't stand on the street and just lead people down the street on tours all the time. I work full time as a teacher. So I'm thinking, all right, it's got to be free, and it's got to be something that people can do on their own, because I can't be there. So that's how I came up with the idea of using the QR codes. And it's been pretty popular. So it's something that you can do in your community that isn't going to cost you much, and there's a big bang for your buck. So I would highly recommend it.
Are you moving away from write-ups and doing more of the media format?
Yes, because I know people can't read the write-ups, unfortunately.
Do you need a special program to download to read the QR codes, or do people just use the QR readers on their phone?
You use the QR reader on your phone. If you don't have one, this is what I always tell people. I don't pay for anything if I don't have to. There are a lot of free apps that you can get. So you can go to Google Play or the Apple Store, and there's free ones. So don't pay for them.
Have you ever considered making the walking tour a geocache hunt?
I have actually, but I haven't done it yet.
Some people might not be familiar with that idea of the geocache hunts. Can you explain that a little more?
To my understanding, and I don't know a ton about these, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. If I think I'm correct.
You're given coordinates. So if you have on your phone, if you look, there's apps you can get that you can plug in coordinates. And geocachers, there's typically some kind of hint or clue. It's similar to, everybody heard, what was the Pokemon Go is kind of a form of geocaching, only you were looking for those weird, creepy little creatures. In this case, you're typically looking for some sort of along a hiking trail, or sometimes museums would do it inside the museum where there might be something hidden. Typically, there would be a pencil and a piece of paper and maybe something you could put in and take out. And that kind of idea, it's a pretty similar concept to what you're doing, just a different way to get people involved. It was really, really popular about 10 years ago. It's somewhat popular now. What's interesting with, and I'll get to this, QR codes had kind of died about 2 years ago. The museums had started to shift away from them. They weren't as popular. They seem to be making a comeback again to a certain degree. Any thought as to why and what drives people to use those?
I think it's because so many times when you're going in stores now, when you go to buy things, that there's QR codes. So I think that they're just everywhere now. I think even more companies are using them and people have gotten used to them. I think when they first came out, people didn't know what they were. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's my opinion. And I just think it's, more ubiquitous, I guess I would say. There's just so many of them around now.
Hey, Julie, this is Margaret. I had to step away, and I think they went past my question. I was the one that asked how you handle incorrect historical information that's posted by participants. And I asked this because there was a Facebook group that someone gave an answer on, and it was about the history of Vestal, and it was really, really incorrect. I mean, severely.
Right.
And everybody was responding to what the person said. Isn't that wonderful? I never knew that. I'm going to tell. So I thought, no, please don't. So how do you handle that?
Well, I've been very lucky. I have some very good people on my Facebook site, and they will correct people for me. I don't even have to. And I think it's because when I first started it, I knew what I wanted in the group, that I wanted them to be able to discuss things respectfully. And I was not going to be, the sage on the stage. I was there to guide them, but I wasn't going to be the one who was going to be lecturing to people all the time. And because I don't think you learn that way. So I think it's because I set it up that way that people took ownership and would say, no, that's not right. Obviously, if it was that wrong with the experience that you had, I would have stepped in, but I haven't had to do that.
So is your group a closed group?
No, it's public.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We got a few more that have come in here. Any suggestions about getting introduced to podcasting? Your sound's off, Julie.
First thing, I would start listening to podcasts. It shouldn't be.
Do you have any suggestions to listen to?
Gosh. God, there's so many. No, I don't. I would just go online and just, start researching. The state historian has a really nice one.
Devin does. If you're bored, there is a fun kind of history podcast called Spectacular Failures about all the screw ups that businesses have done over the course of time and how they failed. It's quite interesting.
The Watertown Daily Times has a really nice one too. I think it's called Second Look. I'm terrible with titles, but I think that's what it's called. And that one's really nice too. It's a history one. But I would just, Google it. I would just type in history podcast and you'll probably get a ton of them.
Any thoughts on using TIFF files as opposed to microfilm for digitizing old newspapers? Better have a big old hard drive.
Wow. That's what I'm thinking. Wow. I haven't digitized newspaper files because that's been done for me. The library system did that. So no, I don't have to do that.
One thing about any files, there is something called bit rot. A good person to talk about this is Tom Treninsky, who you might know as the FultonHistory.com guy. He's done pretty extensive research into that kind of stuff, trying to make sure his site doesn't go away. But I've never, that'd be a lot of data storage you'd have to do a TIFF file for newspapers.
Yeah. And he got hacked not too long ago.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, pretty seriously. He was offline for a while.
Let's see. Oh, we got all sorts of podcasts now being thrown together here.
Oh, good. That's the best part about these. See, I'm going to learn from you guys because you guys will, that's the best part about this because you look in the chat and you think, oh, that's cool. I'm going to try that.
How do you find a Facebook group to belong to? How do you actively search out if you're looking for a group?
I think there's a search bar right in Facebook. See if I can pull it up. Hang on a sec. How am I doing for time? Am I still good?
Oh, you got 10 minutes still.
Oh, great. Okay, good. I was you guys are going to have a lot of questions, so this is great. So if I go into Facebook, there should be, this is going to take me right to my group, but give me a second. There's a search bar right in Facebook that you can, I'll go to mine. Hopefully there's nothing ridiculous on my site. Yeah, so you can go right in here, I believe, and look for stuff. And a lot of times when you are, I'm looking for it right now. Where is it? Oh, right up here, you can type it right in. You can type it in right in here. Let me try this. There you go. So here's a bunch.
And if you think there's one specific, you can probably look up that specific thing on its own, I'm assuming.
Yes, probably.
Can you share your rules for language on your Facebook page?
Yes, I will. I can share that as well.
Keep the questions coming in. Valerie suggests that you can use an app called Cam Scanner, which turns scans into PDF and JPEGs and uses cloud storage.
Nice. Is that for the newspapers if you want to scan all those?
I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're going to share.
It's for scanning anything. And the great thing about it is if you're in an archive and you're scanning a manuscript or something like that, it will straighten out the curve.
Oh, that's nice.
And then it also strips away the background so you can, when you print it out, you don't use up a lot of ink.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, so somebody asked to see my rules, right? Let me look. Let me see if I can find them on here. Okay, so here are my rules. Welcome new Ogdensburg history members. I created this group so that we could share and learn about Ogdensburg's rich history. Before we make comments, we welcome all views and opinions. However, we require polite behavior in this public space, no name calling, obscene language, personal attacks, racial slurs, or libel. Political posts are not allowed. Rule of thumb, do not say anything in a comment that you would not say face to face. And then I had to add this. Failure to follow the rules will result in you being blocked from the site. So that's what I've used. And
Have you blocked people?
Oh yeah, right and left if they don't behave themselves. That doesn't bother me in the least.
Can you get unblocked?
Nope. I don't have time for that. Hey, if you as an adult, if you don't know that you're being obnoxious, you don't need to be there. And it's actually a really nice group. They're very nice.
Julie?
Yes.
I have a Facebook page and it's for as town historian, and they keep, I'm the only one who's posted on it, and I just post historical pictures and events. Yep. They want to keep boosting it. Facebook keeps boosting it. I'm afraid to boost it. Do you boost it?
No, I don't.
All right.
No.
I'm afraid that something's going to happen if I boost it and they spend money.
Do you have a lot of members on your site?
I've got about 167.
Awesome. What I did, this is going to sound awful, but I invited my whole family on there and all my friends, and that's how I started it.
Oh, that's a good idea. I can do that. I've got a historical event coming up, and I'm going to be eventually posting it to them once I get their emails.
Right. So I figure your family can't turn you down.
Hope not.
Always make sure you use the invite button too. So if you have a post that goes really, really viral and you get hundreds of likes, every one of those likes should be invited.
Yeah.
That's how you grow your audience without having to pay for it.
Yep. Yep. I haven't paid for anything. I paid for nothing. And I'm up almost to 7,000. So, I mean, it's not huge. It's not a huge group, but it's nice. It's a nice size.
10,000, I think you become an influencer.
Any other questions? Thank you.
So if
And
there are
then-
no other questions, I think we'll wrap up this session. The next session starts at 2:15. It's documenting COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter. So take a break, run to the restroom, get a drink, and join us again at 2:15.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you, Julie. Great job.
Bye.